When you open up the calendar app on your phone or on your computer and you're just scrolling ahead to a public holiday, there is this immediate expectation of, like, tranquility.
Right. Yeah. It's a break.
Exactly. It feels incredibly clean. You see a little neat dot on a digital grid, or maybe it's like a tiny icon of a barbecue,
Yeah.
and you just think, oh, great, a day I don't have to set an alarm.
Right. It creates this very binary view of our lives. Like a day is either categorized as labor or it is categorized as rest. There's no in between.
Alarm or no alarm.
Hmm.
I mean, it is a comforting thought. We really like our time off to be simple. But when you step into the actual history of how those days off earned their spot on that calendar, well, that neat little digital grid completely shatters.
No, totally.
We are looking at a historical landscape that is just volatile and really murky.
Yeah, because the days of rest we experience now, they were not freely given by, benevolent industrialists. They were fought for, and they actually cost lives.
And that is the exact paradox we are exploring today. So welcome to our deep dive. Today we are taking the core insights from the text Labor Day, the global struggle for workers' rights.
It's quite a read.
It really is. And our mission today is to explore the surprising, violent, and honestly, deeply relevant history of International Labor Day, which is May 1st. We want to understand how a highly localized, basically 19th century struggle completely reshaped the modern work-life balance that you, and really everyone listening, navigate every single day.
Yeah, and to understand that transformation, we really have to strip away the modern assumption that an 8-hour workday is just like a standard feature of the economy. It wasn't always.
Right.
In the late 19th century, even suggesting a limit on working hours was considered a radical, almost unthinkable disruption to the industrial machine.
Okay, let's unpack this because we really need to pivot away from our modern concept of just, a casual long weekend.
Yeah.
We are talking about literal life or death battles here. So let's travel back to the boiling point. The year is 1886.
1886, right.
And the place is Chicago. Our material paints a picture of industrial life that is, frankly, incredibly difficult to stomach today.
It's brutal. I mean, industry in post-Civil War America was expanding at an unprecedented rate, and Chicago was really the epicenter of it all. It was this massive railway hub and manufacturing center, but that economic engine ran entirely on unregulated human labor.
Completely unregulated.
Exactly. We're talking about workers routinely enduring 10 to 16-hour shifts. And these were not, ergonomic environments we'd recognize today.
Yeah, not at all.
These were slaughterhouses, steel mills, garment factories, little to no ventilation, absolutely no safety protocols, and just a constant everyday risk of mutilation or even death.
And the details on the child labor are particularly striking. Like, I want you, the listener, to just pause and visualize this for a second. Imagine working from 6:00 a.m. until 10:00 p.m. every single day. But you aren't an adult. You are literally 10 years old.
Yeah, just a kid.
Right. You wake up in the dark, you walk to a hazardous factory, you breathe in like coal dust or textile fibers for 14 straight hours, and then you walk home in the dark.
And then you eat, sleep for maybe a few hours, and you just do it all again.
Yeah. There is no childhood. There's no time to even think.
Well, the human being was treated as basically an interchangeable part of the machinery. You wear out a part, you replace it. The sheer physical and mental exhaustion baked into that daily routine was total.
So I have a massive logistical question here because this is wild to me. If everyone in these factories is working up to 16-hour days and they are exhausted to their very bones, how on earth did the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions actually manage to organize massive coordinated strikes?
It's a great question.
I mean, they set a specific deadline of May 1st, 1886, demanding a universal 8-hour workday. How do you organize tens of thousands of people when literally nobody has a free minute to even speak to each other?
That is the logistical miracle of this era, really. Think about the makeup of Chicago in the 1880s. It was a huge melting pot of immigrants. You had Germans, Bohemians, Irish, Polish workers.
So they didn't even speak the same language.
Exactly. They didn't share a common language, and they certainly didn't have, telephones or email or group chats. They used the only structures available to them, which were neighborhood saloons, mutual aid societies, and a fiercely independent foreign language press.
So the local pub basically became the union hall.
Very much so, yeah. Workers would gather after those grueling shifts, as exhausted as they were, and they'd read newspapers like the German language Arbeiterzeitung.
Wow.
They translated pamphlets by hand. They organized these massive decentralized networks just block by block. So when May 1st actually arrived, the strike wasn't just a few angry people walking out. It was an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 workers walking off the job nationwide.
500,000 people.
Right, with Chicago acting as the real epicenter.
And the pushback from the authorities and the business owners, I mean, it was immediate. May 1st was the deadline. The city basically ground to a halt. But by May 3rd, the tension snapped. Strikers were picketing outside the McCormick Reaper Works plant in Chicago.
And that's when the police arrived. They fired into the crowd of striking workers, and they killed at least 2 people.
Just fired right into the picket line.
Yeah. And that bloodshed acted as a catalyst. The labor organizers immediately called for a mass rally the very next evening, May 4th, at Haymarket Square.
Right.
And it's important to note the intent of that rally was to peacefully protest the police brutality from the day before.
Only it didn't stay peaceful. I mean, the weather was terrible that night. It was raining. The crowd was dwindling down. The mayor of Chicago even stopped by, saw it was peaceful, and actually went home.
He did, yeah.
But then, this large contingent of heavily armed police marched into the square and basically ordered the remaining crowd to disperse.
And in that chaotic moment of confrontation, an unidentified person threw a dynamite bomb right into the ranks of the police. It exploded, killing an officer immediately.
Oh.
And the police drew their weapons and fired blindly into the crowd and even at each other in the dark, honestly. When the smoke finally cleared, several police officers and an unknown number of civilians were dead or wounded.
Which triggers what becomes known as the Haymarket Affair. So the authorities obviously needed someone to blame for the bomb. They rounded up 8 prominent labor organizers and anarchists and put them on trial for murder. But here's the critical detail that makes this trial so notorious. Most of these men weren't even at Haymarket Square when the bomb went off.
Right. What's fascinating here is how the legal system was weaponized. The Haymarket 8 were not tried for throwing the bomb. The prosecution openly admitted they couldn't prove who threw it.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Instead, they were put on trial for their political beliefs and their organizing efforts. The judge, Joseph Gary, was notoriously biased against labor. The jury wasn't selected randomly either. A bailiff was specifically instructed to find men who would ensure a conviction.
It was a complete show trial. The message from the establishment was just very clear, like, look what happens if you challenge the industrial order. 7 of the men were sentenced to death, and 4 were ultimately hanged.
Yeah. The state calculated that by executing the leadership, they could inspire enough terror to just crush the 8-hour movement permanently.
But history shows us that extreme crackdowns often achieve the exact opposite. Executing those men didn't kill the labor movement at all.
Not even close.
It provided the movement with martyrs. It created this massive focal point of moral outrage that transcended Chicago entirely.
That execution acted like a match in a powder keg, really. The shockwaves of what happened in Chicago crossed the Atlantic. By 1889, an international coalition of socialist and labor parties, which was known as the Second International, convened in Paris. And they took a monumental step. They officially declared May 1st as International Workers' Day.
So they took the local tragedy and engineered it into a global rallying cry. They chose that specific date to honor the Haymarket martyrs and to kind of universalize the struggle for the 8-hour workday.
Yeah, and the messaging they adopted was just brilliant in its simplicity and its symmetry.
Oh, the catchphrase of an era. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will.
It perfectly divides the 24-hour day into equal thirds.
So what does this all mean? The first 2 parts are highly functional, obviously. 8 hours for work is the economic transaction. 8 hours for rest is just biological necessity. I mean, we have to sleep to survive.
Right, I need sleep.
But I want to zero in on that third pillar. Let's analyze what we will. Because to me, connecting this to you, the listener, today, that is our modern struggle for autonomy. It is the time to have a hobby or, to doom scroll, to read a book, to just exist in your own physical body for a few hours without answering to absolutely anyone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this phrase represents a massive philosophical shift. Demanding 8 hours for what we will was a declaration that workers were human beings first and units of labor second.
It's the ultimate rejection of being a purely economic creature.
Exactly. Furthermore, giving workers time for themselves had profound political implications. If you are working 16 hours a day, you do not have the bandwidth to educate yourself.
No, of course not.
You cannot organize politically, you can't read the news or actively participate in civic life. And the ruling classes understood this perfectly. Keeping the working class in a state of perpetual exhaustion is a very, very effective way to prevent them from participating in a democracy.
Wow, yeah.
So what we will was really a demand for the intellectual and physical space required to be a full citizen.
The revolutionary act of just having free time. And what I find so incredible is how quickly this profound desire for autonomy resonated across the globe. We aren't just talking about industrial hubs in the West. This concept traveled along global shipping routes and through the massive geopolitical shifts following World War I, and it eventually reached populations navigating their own really complex struggles.
Which brings a major shift in geography to our narrative.
Let's jump forward in time to May 1st, 1923. We are looking at India's first Labor Day celebration, which took place in the city of Chennai, known then as Madras.
The context here is vital. In 1923, India is under British colonial rule. The country is in the midst of a massive, multifaceted push for independence. Madras is this major port city, a huge railway hub, and a place where vast numbers of working-class people are intersecting every day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Right. This event was organized by the Labour Kisan Party of Hindustan, spearheaded by a prominent figure named M. Singaravelu Chettiar. They actually held two simultaneous meetings that day, one at Marina Beach and one near the High Court. But what fascinates me is the duality of the actions they took. They performed two very distinct acts that day.
It really is a masterclass in multifaceted organizing. The first action they took was a practical legislative demand. They passed a formal resolution urging the British colonial government to declare May 1st a national holiday.
So they used the institutional tools available to them, like a formal resolution put to paper, requesting recognition within the existing legal framework.
Yes, exactly. Institutional engagement. But the second act they performed was purely symbolic and honestly deeply radical for the time and place. This event in Madras marked the first ever public hoisting of the red flag in India.
That specific visual detail stands out so sharply against the whole bureaucratic resolution part.
It does, and this raises an important question, right? Why is a physical piece of colored cloth so necessary to anchor a movement, especially in a place like 1923 India?
Right, because they can't trend a hashtag or, blast an email to all the dock workers.
No, you have to consider the environment. India is a vast landscape with incredible linguistic diversity. In Madras alone, you have people speaking Tamil, Telugu, English, and more. And on top of that, literacy rates among the colonial working class were exceptionally low. A formal resolution written on a piece of paper is completely abstract to a dock worker who literally cannot read it.
But a red flag requires zero translation.
Exactly. A red flag is visceral. It provides an immediate visual shorthand for solidarity. When you raise that flag on Marina Beach, it communicates instantly across every single language barrier and literacy level that the people standing beneath it share a common struggle. It anchors the abstract idea of workers' rights into a tangible physical object.
It is incredible how that blend of actions, the polite legislative demand for a holiday, paired directly with the bold visual protest of raising a flag. It perfectly mirrors the dual identity of May Day as we experience it today. It is simultaneously an official institution and a continuous site of protest.
That dual identity really defines the modern landscape of May 1st.
Let's look at the scope of May Day today. It is an official public holiday in over 80 countries.
Over 80.
Which is a massive global footprint originating from a single violent week in Chicago.
Yeah, and its modern observance still reflects that 1923 duality we saw in Chennai. On one hand, it is a day of state-sanctioned celebration. Governments, trade unions, and civic organizations hold parades and cultural events to formally acknowledge the contributions workers make to society.
Right, and there is a detail from India's modern May Day practices that I think highlights this beautifully. Alongside the political speeches, there are contests designed specifically to educate children about workplace fairness and labor rights.
That's a great example.
Yeah, and contrast that with 1886 Chicago, where 10-year-olds were working 14-hour shifts in textile mills. Now they are drawing posters about fair wages. That is a highly measurable metric of generational progress.
It really demonstrates a massive cultural shift in how society views human rights and the inherent value of labor.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment here, because I'm sure you, listening to this, have experienced a May Day or a Labor Day that just felt like an excuse to buy a discounted mattress or, have a barbecue in the backyard.
Sure, absolutely.
With all the official parades and the government sanctioning, has May Day just become a sanitized relic? Have the rough edges been sanded down so much that it has basically lost its teeth?
It is really easy to assume that, particularly if you live in a sector where an 8-hour day and weekends are just the unquestioned norm. But the reality is actually quite the opposite. May Day remains a highly active platform for protesting modern, unresolved labor issues.
So it isn't just about looking backward and thanking the Chicago organizers.
Not at all. Just look at the strikes and campaigns happening globally on May 1st today. Labor groups are actively fighting for living wages in the face of massive inflation. They are protesting unsafe conditions in massive e-commerce warehouses. They are fighting for job security in an era of corporate downsizing. The fight for workers' rights is not a closed chapter in a history textbook. It's happening right now.
The arena has simply shifted. I want you, the listener, to think about your own working environment right now. Whether you are sitting in a glass-paneled corporate office or managing a bustling retail floor, or maybe sitting at a kitchen table doing remote freelance work.
Yeah.
Consider your daily routine through the lens of those ongoing campaigns. The anxiety over job security, the push for a wage that actually covers the cost of living. These are the exact same fundamental struggles for a fair exchange of your time and labor.
Exactly. The context changes, the technology changes, of course, but the core friction between capital's desire for efficiency and the human desire for dignity, that remains a constant.
So let's sort of summarize the incredible scope of this journey. We started by investigating the origins of a single day off on our digital calendars. We traced it back to the suffocating factories of 1886 Chicago, where workers literally died demanding something as basic as an 8-hour shift. We saw how the corrupt trial of the Haymarket 8 completely backfired on the establishment, which prompted the Second International to cement May 1st as a global rallying cry in 1889.
And then we watched that concept travel across the globe to the shores of Chennai in 1923, where organizers used a legislative resolution and a red flag to anchor the movement across vast language barriers.
Yeah.
And finally, we arrived at the present day, where over 80 countries navigate this delicate balance of celebrating past victories while using the very same day to protest current inequities.
It's wild.
If there is a defining takeaway from this history, it is that May Day is not a passive memorial. It is a highly active, living tradition that provides workers a designated moment to voice their hopes for the future of their own labor.
It is a living, breathing mechanism. And that actually leads me to a final lingering question.
Yeah.
Something I really want you to chew on long after this deep dive ends. Think about the economic landscape we are rapidly accelerating into right now. With the rise of artificial intelligence, the ubiquity of remote work, and the massive explosion of the gig economy, the concept of being on the clock is just dissolving.
The boundaries are entirely permeable now.
Right. The traditional, clean, 8-hour workday that those Chicago workers literally bled for is actively vanishing for millions of people. When your boss is an algorithm that schedules your shifts via an app, or your phone can ping you as an urgent task at 11:00 p.m. on a Tuesday, that 8-hour boundary doesn't exist anymore.
No, it's gone.
So what will the rallying cry for the next era of workers' rights sound like? Will it take a completely new kind of May Day to reclaim the boundaries of our own time, to achieve our own generation's version of 8 hours for what we will? But next time you open your calendar app and you see that neat little dot marking a public holiday, remember that the grid is not clean. It is built over a deep, volatile history of human struggle, and that history is actively being written by all of us right now. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.